What's up, everybody? Welcome to the 3 and Out YouTube page. I'm John Middlekauff, and we are talking football all day, every day. Make sure you subscribe, like the video, share it with your friends. Let's roll, baby. Okay, let's do a little mailbag. At John Middlekauff is the Instagram. Fire in those DMs. Get your questions answered on the show. Someone sent me this app. I have to go relook up the app. But famous people charge, some people charge like 10 grand to have a conversation. Now, these are celebrities. These are like life coaches. But you can also text and send text messages. Some people charge like $5. Some people, super famous people like $50. I was thinking maybe I could do that app. And I have to look into that and guarantee you get on the show. I would still do the Instagram that is free. But obviously some people just don't get their questions answered. And some people keep hitting me up. It's like, it's just the way the Instagram setup works. It's, I'm just going to miss some. It's not like Excel spreadsheet. For some reason, I've been a Browns fan since I was 13. I'm 30 now. There hasn't been a whole lot to be excited about. Is this year likely their only chance for success? Their roster is pretty good, at least I think. Is Watson going to ruin any shot of a playoff run and the Browns' future for years to come? Do I need to give up on being a Browns fan? Thanks. P.S. Tried to get this in last week. Seems fitting now. I think as long as Deshaun Watson is your quarterback, you have no shot. He's played one half of good football in all of his Browns games. He's a disaster. And I saw Stefanski was like, our protection was terrible. We got to block better. Part of paying him all that money was to overcome poor blocking because he was a great athlete. He was a playmaker. Well, he's a terrible playmaker now. You know the craziest part I thought of yesterday's game that no one's really going to talk about? How many times on go routes or deep end zone shots that he just would let leave his hand? They're like, oh, this is a bomb. Would the ball go 50 yards past the wide receiver and DB? He threw a couple into the stands. Now, even if is he trying to throw every single ball away? Maybe he would say he was, but I would doubt it. Like, has he just lost all of his touch? He feels like anyone that plays golf can relate to this. When you're just in the middle of a round and you're like, I've lost my swing. Like, what do you mean? Like, I don't really even know how to swing. I have no confidence in anything. That's what he feels like when he's playing. It's like he just is lost, which is crazy because he was always such like an instinctive, innate player. And now it feels like that's completely gone. He's never been a guy that plays in the construct of just a normal offense. He's always kind of been a freelance guy. But if you can't freelance and that's your type player, you're kind of screwed. Like Russell can't freelance anymore, but he can still dink and dunk it around. Like Deshaun doesn't really do that well either. So hard to look at him. Body language is terrible. Looks like his teammates hate him. The amount of money you guys are paying him. And I think they moved money around recently to like change up salary cap. You're just screwed. So the reason you guys were good last year, let's face it, is Flacco came in and was incredible. He was way better than Deshaun Watson. One, he would get rid of the ball fast. This guy just holds on to the ball. I have a question for the mailbag. Why does it seem like anytime Burrow has a stinker, the media just glosses over it? He was awful against the Patriots. And I think we're starting to see that Burrow looks like without the Avengers in his wide receiver room. How long will he keep living off the fluke win against the Chiefs from 3 years ago? He's not in the top three. Mahomes, Allen, Lamar. I would say this. Let's use yesterday as an example, which has to be one of the worst losses of the day. At home, Patriots, you score 10 points. Jacoby Brissett throws for 120 yards. No way around it. Props to Gerard Mayo. Had the boys ready. That was one of the least interesting games for me as a consumer. I didn't really pay attention. It was on one of my boxes, but I was rarely looking over there. And I think I speak for most of the country. Most people are not watching that game. And that includes people that talk about football for a living. So when you think about the games you're going to discuss, That's not a big story after week one because, like, Caleb and the Bears, obviously the Steelers and Justin Fields beating Atlanta, clearly Dak and Deshaun Watson. When you play the Patriots, and listen, great win for the Patriots, I don't think they're going to be any good. So that game in the hierarchy of importance, in the business of talking about stuff, in the business of the masses watching it, is low on the totem pole. This week it changes. He plays the Chiefs. So if they do that again against the Chiefs, which is in a primetime slot, not primetime, but Sunday afternoon window, which is one of the biggest games in America, Nance and Romo. There are going to be a lot of people watching that thing Sunday afternoon. If they look like that again and get boat raced, it will be one of the biggest stories on Monday morning. 0-2, Burrow looks like shit. His wrist, is he okay? What's up with Jamar Chase? Saying that he wants more money than Justin Jefferson. It would just get weird. But I do think they get to skate under the radar a little bit because of the team they play. If they had just played the Ravens, if they had just played the Chiefs, if they had just played the Cowboys, if they had just played the Packers, it would be a bigger story. Part of it is like the post-Belichick, Jacoby Brissett Patriots. This is not, I'm not saying this like with any malicious intent, are kind of irrelevant. Big Broncos fan. This is from Brad. Been following since the Manning trade, free agent signing, but I hear what you're saying, in 12. I'm 24. And the past decade has been terrible. Question for the pod. Do you put the Broncos' offensive struggles against Seattle on Bo Nix and their lack of skill positions, or is Seattle's defense better than expected with a tough road environment? I would say any rookie's first road start is a difficult proposition. Now, they covered, so props to them. I had a little cash on them, +6, and it was getting dicey near the end. Place is loud, and Mike McDonald is a really good defensive coordinator. Their personnel on defense is better than it has performed. But their pass rush was pretty feisty, and they got good DBs. But Bo Nix looked like a rookie and did some stupid shit. I mean, the one pick he threw to the front of the pylon was just an awful throw. And he looked a little frenetic, inaccurate. He looked like a rookie. And we talked about it earlier on the podcast. Like, that's how rookies look sometimes. They looked overwhelmed. Now, you guys don't exactly have Julius Thomas, Demaryius Thomas, and Wes Welker running around out there. So it's a little more difficult in a road environment. It's still going to be a really tough start to the season for Denver because they play Pittsburgh this week. Big picture, though, I would try to be pretty optimistic. And I am optimistic. Like, I believe in this duo, even if it's going to be rough. I invest in stocks that are going down when I believe in them. And you just have to have the stomach to take 20, 30, 40% downturns. And that's what I would imagine maybe the first month of the season is like for Bo Nix and Sean Payton. But I'm going to keep buying. I'm not going to fade off like, oh, I was wrong there. Because I think I'll be proven right. Over the long term, you'll be able to get me early. How am I supposed to believe in my coach when he's scared to go for it on 4th and 1, when you're over midfield and there's a chance you don't get the ball back? The defense was clearly gassed. Where is his feel for the game? Feels like a Devontae trade is inevitable, and we're going to be terrible for the next 2 years minimum. You know what's funny is Antonio Pierce, who middle linebacker, tough guy, badass, right? Like, you'd want him in on your football team when he was playing. You'd want him if you were going to get into a tussle in real life. You'd want him in a dark alley by your side. And he talks that way, right? A lot of bravado, a lot of cockiness, because in his life, he's been able to beat up basically anyone he sees. He's a Super Bowl champion. Like, he's a tough guy. Yet when those guys become coaches, they get put in some of these situations and they act like a complete puss. Because their defensive background and the way he's been taught, like, that's the right football play. But in 2024, it's a joke to do that. So I saw that when his quote after the game, because he punted back on a 4th and 1, it was like there's a coward ranking that this company puts out, and they usually tweet it out, and I see it retweeted in my timeline over the worst decisions on some of these. Like, there's a difference to me between being reckless, Doug Peterson was, in the Jags-Miami game and doing this. Like, you have nothing to lose but the game, and you're not winning it, and your quarterback's Gardner Minshew. So when you get a spot to be aggressive, you have to take advantage. And this is not a situation where either team's scoring a lot of points. So getting in position, you're not getting there very often. And then he tried to justify by saying, you know what? We did what we wanted to do. We pinned them back. They just broke a big run. Well, yeah, part of when you punt, even if you pin them, they're one missed tackle away from getting a 50-yard gain, and you're completely screwed. So I never understand, though we see it time and time again, these big, tough guys that talk that way, that carry themselves that way because they've earned it in life, and then coach like a coward. You know, I'll just give Dan Campbell credit. I don't always agree with him, but he walks the walk, he talks the talk, and then he lives it. Like, we're going to be a tough guy, aggressive team. And sometimes you could argue they're reckless, but he ain't scared. And he said that when he got the Detroit job, I vividly remember watching an interview he did. He's like, my core as a football player, I've been trained to be conservative. I came up in that era. I played under Bill Parcells. It wasn't until I worked under Sean Payton. No, sometimes you got to put your nuts on the table, especially week one. It's week one. Why would you not be aggressive? So, embarrassing moment for him. Really is. I think the Raiders they're just in trouble. Gardner Minshew is just not going to be good enough for him. Not even close. Matthew Stafford played unbelievable. I mean, in the second half, he was slinging it. No-look passes, amazing arm talent, and he's a little old, but clearly still has it. Could he be a dark horse for MVP? Depending on how the Niners play, how deep a playoff run could you see the Rams making? Well, health is a major, major concern. You know, to play out of your mind like he was playing with all the injuries that happened to them and still lose is a pretty big kick in the nuts. Because I read today Puka has a PCL injury. They placed him on injured reserve. And McVay said this is a similar injury that he had earlier, but it's way worse. That's a problem. And it's any guy that plays in the NFL that's a backup or a practice squad guy can play a solid game. But usually the reason that guy's a backup and not a starter is because over the course of time, if that player has to play for a month instead of half a game, he gets exposed. And Stafford was getting hit and hit hard last night. So can they play? I don't have their updated injury, but we'll know as the week goes on. Like, are they going to be missing a bunch of offensive linemen? Because it's really hard to win. Does he have MVP capabilities if they're healthy? 1,000,000%. Let's look at their early schedule. So they get the Cardinals this week in Arizona. Okay, winnable game. But that's not easy because Kyler's a tough little guy to play. That'll be a tough game. Then they play the Niners at home, which will be a 49er home game. Then they got to go to Chicago. It has a pretty good defense. So let's just see how they handle it. Because if you win that game, if you pull that out, you're a lock to be like 2-2. Now it's like you can play pretty well, and all of a sudden, are you 1-2 going into that Bears game on the road? So I like the team. I like their competitive character. Love Stafford. But that was a tough loss last night, given they had the lead. They had all the injuries. It's tough. What are your thoughts on the overtime rules? I wasn't a fan of any team in Sunday night game, so coming at this from a neutral position. How can they improve it and not put so much at stake on the coin toss? I've had a couple ideas, like make each team kick increasing long field goals or give each team 2 minutes and 2 timeouts on each side of the ball. You know what sucks is why change the rule for the postseason and not do it for the regular season? Why not just do it all season long, regular season and postseason? I'm with you. I don't like a touchdown wins the game. But if you kick a field goal, they get the ball. That feels kind of arbitrary and pulled out of your ass. Like, why don't we just like kick a field goal then the other team gets the opportunity to kick the same field goal. Like you could make up any rule you wanted. So I would just have it simply like the playoff rule. If both teams get the ball. Like now, I think the Rams were pretty gassed at that time. So more than likely the right team won in overtime. But my first reaction last night when they kind of said right away, touchdown wins it. It's like, oh yeah, we're not playing the playoff rules in the regular season. I think it sucks. That's why Andy Reid fought for it. You should both get a chance. Touchdowns, TD, Tutty, taking it to the house, in for 6. I like to call it a tug. Whatever you call touchdown, one thing's for sure. Touchdowns matter more at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. On the ground, in the air, special teams or defense, we do not care how you score them. We just want to bet touchdowns. And DraftKings Sportsbook is the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Ready to place your first NFL bet? Try betting on something simple like a player to score a touchdown. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your bet today. Ready to do a touchdown dance of your own? I know I do it all the time. New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $250 in bonus bets instantly and get 1 month of NFL Plus Premium. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code JOHN. That's code JOHN for new customers to get $250 in bonus bets when you bet just $5 and get 1 month NFL Plus Premium. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Falcons fan who has a question for the mailbag. After watching Kirk play out of the pistol and shotgun for most of the game, while also not looking very mobile, I'm very worried that we burned $100 million on a guy that doesn't look much better than Big Ben in his twilight years. Is this Kirk shaking off the rust for week 1, or we start calling for Penix to play? He's not a good athlete. Never has been. So putting him in situations where he has to run for his life, he's screwed. The way Cousins plays well is when he's getting rid of the ball fast, or you can protect. Like Goff. Goff's good when he has a good offensive line because he can sit there in the pocket. Same with Derek Carr. If you ask Cousins to ad-lib, there is no ad-lib. He doesn't have the capability. So yesterday, TJ Watt, Highsmith, those guys were in his shit. He's screwed. If you can rush Cousins, this is where he has a lot in common with Carr, it's over and it's over fast. And then he gets rattled and he completely falls apart. When he's getting untouched and he gets a rhythm, that's where he looks like a $40 million guy. My whole take was I had no problem with signing him, but then draft Penix. It's like, well, are we sure that Penix wouldn't be equally as like I think Penix is going to be a good NFL player. So if I was a Falcons fan, I got a short leash on this. I don't want to watch much. If historically most people that had this injury were never the same. Most people that get injured like this, I'm recording this part before Rodgers plays, but Rodgers was a infinitely better athlete than Cousins. One of his great attributes was moving around. Cousins was never that. Cousins was a bad NFL. That's like Tom Brady running the 40 at the combine. So once you draft Penix, it gets weird. I think your offensive skill guys are a little overrated. We talk about some of these guys before they've done anything like, well, they got like Marshall Faulk 2.0 and Tony Gonzalez and Julio Jones. It's like, no, not quite. Raheem Morris has done what? That was, if I could do yesterday over, I would have, 2 teams I wish I would have emptied the clip on more and put all my money that I'm willing to bet on would have been the Steelers and the Cowboys. I love those 2 spots. Jags, I can't believe I bet on the Jags. I'm an idiot. Tomlin, that spot against Cousins and Raheem Morris, and the Cowboys against Deshaun Watson. I liked him before, and I should have loved him even more. So I'd have to go back and look what Cousins 2 years ago. It feels like an O'Connell's offense under center. I don't know. I think it's going to get weird. I think it's going to get really weird. But regardless who you're playing and whether he's under center or in the gun, if your team is getting smoked up front, Cousins is done. And that goes when he played in Washington, when he played in Minnesota, when he plays for you guys. if you can't protect them, and it's hard. I mean, TJ Watt, you could argue, was the best player in the NFL yesterday. I mean, it's a short list, like Josh, Micah Parsons, right? I mean, he was that good. When you get him in those spots, like Cousins is a sitting duck. Do you think the Dak contracts? Do you think Dak gets that contract if Trey Lance showed any potential? Well, he showed no potential, so I think that they knew last year that it wasn't really a conversation. They had to see him in practice. But I would imagine that 5 interception game against the Chargers, 7-string players, cemented it. But Trey Lance was their third stringer last year, and he was their third stringer again. So I think Trey Lance, like that conversation, that connection was a little overblown. I think ideally Jerry was thinking that when he made the trade. I think they knew before this offseason ever started that, like, yeah, this guy's not, he can't be a backup. He's not a backup quarterback. He's not a top, I think he's like a bottom 5 quarterback in the entire NFL, including third stringers. He's obviously not one of the top 64 guys in the NFL. And he's not. He's not one of the best 64 guys in the NFL. It's like, if he's your backup, you will lose. It's like when I see the Bills, when Josh hurts his hand, it's like, you guys are going to put Trubisky in the game? If you play Trubisky, you will lose. I never understand that. I'd rather just rotate through my backups than have a guy that I know, if my starting quarterback is injured in a game or he's got to start for a month, we're going to lose every game. So I hear what you're saying, but I love the podcast. Would love to shave my head to join the Bald Brotherhood, but I'd look like an egg. So there you go. As much as I like your football takes, some financial advice has really caught my attention. What are some podcasts or other media outlets you would suggest, or any quick advice? I would listen to a lot of financial books and any business book from, I was just listening to, I probably got halfway through. I ended up listening to podcasts, so I don't finish audiobooks, but the business, Sam Walton, Made in America. He's the guy that started Walmart, about like in the 60s and 70s when he was building up that business, is incredible. I love Josh Brown, and he has this thing called The Compound. I watch a lot of his YouTube videos and listen to their podcast there. It's just solid financial advice. And you're a lot younger than me. Start investing now. I mean, it'll pay dividends as the older you get. From my girlfriend's Instagram, don't have one. Do you think Sean Payton could get fired at the end of the year if the Broncos win 4 or 5 games and Nix looks poorly? No chance. I think Sean's getting like 3 years with Nix. They're paying him a lot of money. And what are you going to fire him for who? Wanted to start off by letting you know I appreciate your insight. You're one of the best talkers of pure ball on the internet. That being said, Urine Collins' anointment of Nix was ridiculous. I get he has Peyton, but man, I watched him at Oregon and Auburn, and he struggles to push the ball downfield. You saw that yesterday or today. Also, you and Klatt are the only people I've seen take Coward to school. 26 completions for under 150 yards is insane. Check down Merchant. At least he's accurate under 10 yards. There's only one Drew Brees. Like I said, I'm not giving up. I'm not giving up. I don't expect him to be Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen pushing the ball down the field. I think he's going to be okay. Did I anoint him? Maybe I did. But again, sometimes I get caught up in the hype. I'm human. Why did the Raiders opt for Luke Getsy as their offensive coordinator over someone like Kingsbury, considering Getsy's offense struggled with the Bears and now seems underperforming with Vegas? I would say yesterday he did not underperform. His quarterback play is going to be bad. Their offensive line is not good. So I don't know Luke Getsy. This is not personal. I'm not like supporting a guy that I've known. I've never met the guy. I know nothing about him beside when he was the Bears offensive coordinator. But I think if you gave Andy Reid the Raiders offense for the rest of the season, while they would look better, they're not going to be any good. They're not going to be good. The Raiders tried to hire Cliff Kingsbury. And then Adam Peters got his owner to give him way more money, and they took him to Washington. But I don't think Kingsbury would have changed much either. So I don't think it really would have mattered, honestly. When your quarterback room is Aidan O'Connell and Gardner Minshew, and you're the Raiders, it'd be one thing if like, well, McVay or Kyle or Andy, still probably not be great, but they would have some moments. Like, I don't expect you guys to have moments. It's not going to be pretty. There's nothing you can really do about it. I've been listening to you for a long time. I'm originally from Arroyo Grande. Both my parents went to Cal Poly, Central Coast, baby. But now I live out in Arizona. I actually work for the owner of the Thumb. Saw your post today and couldn't help but reach out. Thanks for my entertainment. This place, Maria's been telling me about it for a while. It's a gas station. Guy Fieri went there and he did a Triple D episode. And she's like, let's go there. They have great barbecue. When you pull up, it's just a gas. I posted on my Instagram. I did a little reel. You pull, it's just a gas station. So if you didn't know, if you were just driving down the street and needed gas, unless you went inside, you would have no clue. You go in, it is a full-on restaurant. It's a barbecue joint, which is really good, especially relative to gas stations. And it has an unreal like ice cream pastry spot. So you go inside. I got this thing called the Hangover. I wasn't even hungover, but the lady at the front said, get it. And you can turn it into a burrito. It's like brisket, onions, cheese, home fries, topped with cheese. Maria got like a barbecue chicken sandwich. Onion rings were incredible. The mac and cheese I didn't get, but a couple people DM me that live around here that say that mac and cheese is elite. Place is sweet. So if you ever get a chance, you're in North Scottsdale. It's kind of close to like TPC Scottsdale where the waste management is. Type into the Thumb barbecue joint. Blown away. It's cool. I'm a sucker for. I like a good hole in the wall. Technically, this isn't a hole in the wall because it's a legitimate gas station and a car wash. You get gas, your car washed, and you get a brisket sandwich. But it's not like, sometimes gas station food. It's not like that. It's a restaurant. I mean, there are chefs, people, cooks. It was good. I purchased a subscription to Peacock tonight to watch the Eagles and the Packers. It's a couple days old. However, after purchasing, found out that Peacock does not allow recording of live TV programs. I literally canceled my subscription immediately. I work in an IT job overnight and I'm a huge NFL fan. So I could not watch the game live and therefore could not watch the game. Peacock has its head up its ass and they are likely missing out on an additional 20 million people getting this app. Sorry for the long message, but this is just a way and absolutely ridiculous on Peacock's behalf. Yeah, it sucks. I didn't know that. I've been pro Peacock, but I've watched, I guess, every Peacock game that the NFL has had, and I watched the Oregon Boise game live. I'm not a big watch games back guy for the first time. I might watch a game back to see something that I missed, but so I'm a bad person to run that off. But, we all have different struggles in life. I had a mailbag question about the Ravens, John Harbaugh. You've mentioned many times how you believe the Steelers should move on from Tomlin as the standard of success shouldn't be just making the playoffs. At what point do we start holding Harbaugh to the same standard as he is the CEO head coach? Well, they were the 1 seed last year and hosted the AFC Championship game as a favorite. Like, I would say that's if Tomlin had just done that, I would never have thrown out the Steelers should move on. He just keeps barely making the playoffs and then getting beat. The Ravens dominated last year and then hosted the AFC Championship game. If you're doing that, like you're not on the hot seat, you're doing a really good job. So I would say that Harbaugh wins more. Harbaugh's been the number 1 overall seed, I think, a couple times with Lamar Jackson. Didn't happen now he lost, but when's the last time the Steelers? I guess they had a home playoff game the Corona year, and the Browns kicked their ass. So in 2019, they went 14-2, number 1 seed. 2020, 11-5, second round. 2022, remember Lamar got hurt. They still went 10-7, lost to the Bengals in a pretty good game. Last year, they went 13-4. I would say that Harbaugh's just winning more than Tomlin right now. I honestly, that to me would be the biggest difference between those two. if Harbaugh wins the division again this year, he's having more success. If Tomlin was doing exactly what Harbaugh had done the last 5 years, obviously he has Lamar and Tomlin doesn't. But if Tomlin goes 12 wins this year and wins the division, nothing anyone can say. It's a pretty, cut and dry league, right? Only one person's winning the Super Bowl, but like, are you winning divisions? Are you hosting playoff games? Are you putting yourself in position to win the conference? How do you look throughout the regular season? I think Harbaugh's team's just been much better over the last 5 years than Tomlin's. Obviously, that's quarterback play, but one team took Kenny Pickett number 20th overall, and the other team took Lamar Jackson 32nd overall. It'd be one thing if Lamar was the number one pick. You'd be like, well, of course. They got him 32nd. The Steelers took Kenny Pickett 20th. One of the worst picks of all time. Thanks for listening.